Hey guys, so this is What If Invincible was in Young Justice Part 4, guys. Now, it comes to conclusion or comes to my attention that I'm literally most likely the only what ifer that does Young Justice What Ifs on the daily or the weekly. But guys, basically, all I'm gonna say is that I'm gonna be grinding this weekend, giving out a good giving out at least 5 other video action figure content and also what if content. So I'm gonna try to balance out and even out both of those, pretty much both of that content. And I may in the future do some, I might do some video recaps or just my take on creepy episodes and stuff like that, like I don't know, Creeped Out or Ghost Hour or pretty much stuff like that, or Hunting Hour, that TV show. Like it's a real old classic. I don't really remember it. It's one episode I remember about it, but basically, guys, later on, I am gonna do about 3 type of content. I already doing stop motion and action figure content. I'm getting back on that. What ifs, yeah, but also on top of that, for my what was it? Sorry, guys, for my um movie recap. Basically, I might do movie reviews later on, so I might do that. And let's get into it, guys. Now, we start our story off last time when we left off, where we see pretty much Mark get a little bit of in a tussle, not really a tussle, but get a little bit, tensed up towards pretty much Connor. Him not liking Connor and him not liking them. Eventually, this will be, settled out near the end of the series. But basically, pretty much Mark and Invincible do not like each other. And I mean, Mark and Connor do not like each other in the slightest. For some reason, maybe because Mark feels so up and high compared to Connor. But Connor pretty much doesn't really like Mark. So later on, that fight will happen. But basically, we start our story off with episode 6 and 5. Let's start with episode 6. Now, basically, pretty much, we start off with Speedy infiltrating Infinity Island. Basically, him going up there and saving a doctor. This doctor would have been somebody that was working for some nanotech or was working for pretty much the League of Shadows and making some sort of machine. But one of the men that was left behind when she escaped, she left the machine behind. And so the machine was done. Pretty much the machine, if you've seen episode 6, you've seen episode 6. Just get into it, guys. We get hit with the intro and we get hit with pretty much a beach day where we see the rest of the crew or the rest of the gang pretty much hit it out near the beach. Now pretty much Mark, he lives somewhere different than just, pretty much what was it? Than just the area they live on or near Mount Justice. So basically he doesn't have to go to school, or basically pretty much in this universe his school is pretty much canceled for this day. So basically, Wally's only one in this canon that has to go to school at this point. Now, basically, oops, sorry, yes, wait. Actually, skip it. Yeah, Mark basically goes to school, but basically he chooses just to skip school that day. And pretty much him just knowing all the ropes already, so he just basically just leaves Wally there to pretty much just go to school. So Mark basically just does the beach day with everybody else. Now they still play beach and all that other stuff, but Mark kind of goes to a little bit too rough and throws the volleyball right outside of Connor's head. Connor gets kind of angry and pretty much starts to try to tries to pretty much try to fight against Connor. I mean, try to fight against Mark. They start to tussle a little bit, but the fight is kind of stopped by Megan, and pretty much they go on with their beach date, just Connor and pretty much Mark just staying away from each other. Later that day, we see that Wally runs over there saying time for beach, basically, or beach time. Pretty much him just showing up a lot of his beach stuff, but the beach party already being over and everybody being in their hero costumes. Basically, them introduced to their new member, Artemis. Basically, Wally's confused, saying, "What the heck, Artemis?" And basically, her saying, "Have never heard of you?" And basically, Green Arrow says that Artemis is, pretty much her niece, and pretty much after that, shortly after that, Speedy shows up. Or pretty much he calls himself Red Arrow now. Pretty much Green Arrow looks at him and says, "Well, it's unbelievable. You're back." Basically him saying, "No, I'm going solo." He gives them the same mission, gives them the same information he got from the doctor, and pretty much eventually, pretty much Batman says it's their mission now. And pretty much Speed just leaving it to them, and him just being kind of, peed off by this, but he just walks away. After that, they go on to try to take down nanotech. Basically, the nanotech they're going up against is pretty much controlled by the pretty much League of Shadows that goes into building to building, getting valuable information from pretty much computers, infrastructures, and just databases in general, tearing down any type of concrete, flesh, metal, or steel that's in his way. Basically, being able to get any type of information, no matter how much firewalls are put up. But basically, after this, pretty much Artemis is kind of, pushed away from the team, especially Wally. But pretty much after they go to the doctor, pretty much with the scientists at the school, pretty much the scientist is leaked up with them on their whole entire psychic message thing. And Mark is outside on the top of the roof with Megan, basically just spotting everything alongside Connor. Now, basically, you see that pretty much the team isn't really, pretty much getting along. Especially Wally and Artemis aren't getting along with the new, change of things with a new member of the team. Pretty much, Mark is in his stealth suit. Basically like he would be. Basically, him just being in his stealth suit on top of the roof. After Artemis would have left, and after Wally would have given that, shocking, really, annoying type of commentary, them just having the same argument over again. Pretty much Mark not really, changing this whole entire conversation. Not at all, really. Then basically, after that, we get switched to pretty much League of Shadows, targeting and finding out where the scientist is. We see Connor would jump by pretty much Mark, and Mark would have flown down. Basically, Artemis saying, that's a boy. That's some boys. Basically, her pretty much hitting on Mark and Connor. Now, basically, pretty much Artemis would have looked at them, and pretty much Megan would have told her to just stop it. Her, in this can still having feelings for Connor. Basically, we will see that Robin and Connor would have gone up to pretty much go after the nanotech themselves. Basically, them leaving behind Mark for, just a heavy hitter or a tanker, kind of because, Mark's a secondary person in the team that has similar Kryptonian-like abilities. Now, basically, after that, we see that Megan and Artemis start arguing about, the Superboy and whatnot. Basically, her not really caring that much about pretty much Mark. She still does mention Mark saying not to hit on him. Pretty much so like that. After we see that Wally would have ran into a trap led by the assassin that snuck by both of them, Artemis and Megan, earlier, he gets stomped out by the assassin and left in the pool in the school area. There to drown. We see the assassin sneakily throws her shuriken towards the doctor trying to kill her, but Aqualad jumps in the way, pretty much taking the shurikens. Pretty much, the assassin says it had to hurt, and pretty much Aqualad giving a commentary saying that Atlantean skin is way more thicker than human skin. He gets into a fighting stance and starts to fight against the assassin. Artemis and Megan are called in to fight alongside Mark. Mark flies by Megan, and Megan goes back and figures out that, Speedy, no, not Speedy. Sorry, guys, I can't talk right. I can't remember words. Kid Flash is drowning, so basically she goes after him. As we get switched to the rest of the team, they got the assassin, and pretty much she instantly knows that she's screwed because, Mark, Artemis, Mark and Artemis are there, and she kind of recognizes Mark's pattern and seen him on the news, him lifting tanks and doing incredible things like taking straight up, bazookas to the chest and taking rushes of gunfire. Pretty much, she looks at Mark and sees the rest of the team arrive, and she just dips, knowing that she can't really win this fight. At that, we see that pretty much Speedy and Artemis pretty much do get a little bit handsy. Pretty much Artemis seeing that Wally would fall into her arms, but pretty much Wally just says ick and just walks away, just trying to get out of her hands. As we see this, we see that Mark would have just walked off, him not really caring about what loudmouth Wally was saying, him just walking off. After that, we see that the rest of the team would have gotten a little bit more, would have gotten a little bit more, clever with their ideas, saying that they need to relocate the scientist. As we get switched to Robin and Connor on their mission to go to Star Labs, they see the Star Labs is completely destroyed by the nanotech. As this is happening, we get switched back to the team because, pretty much Connor and Robin's situation isn't really changed much at all because, Mark isn't there. As we get switched to pretty much Mark, Artemis, and the rest of the team basically, pretty much guarding the scientist. We see that outside, we see that Aqualad is guarding the area. Aqualad gets folded by one of the nearby villains, and pretty much Black Spider, the assassin, and also some sort of other League of Shadow member shows up to pretty much take down the people and try to get the scientist and kill her. So she doesn't find a way to take down the nanobots. Sorry. So basically, after that, we see that Black Spider. Jeez, bro, I can't remember right now. Just got done recording the Spider-Man What If. Basically, pretty much Black Spider tries to hand-to-hand fight with Wally, and pretty much Artemis tries to arrow down the other assassins that's in the room. As we see pretty much the other assassin try to take down the scientist. We see that the scientist is about to get shot with a crossbow when an arrow with a pretty much a briefcase out of nowhere or some sort of wooden structure out of nowhere is pulled by some sort of telekinesis, stopping the arrow. As we see this, the fight goes on, and pretty much the assassin realizes that the scientist is a fake. Pretty much it being it being Megan in disguise, shapeshifted. As she says, "We've been duped." Mark flies in full blast and punches her out of the. Mark flies. Mark flies full blast towards the assassin after they say, we've been duped. After she finds out Artemis has, shapeshifted, she pretty much tries to get out of the way, but Mark grabs her and throws her through the building into a nearby van, basically throwing her through the van and into a tree, her having a few broken ribs. She overpowers the pain and starts to sprint away, basically her sprinting to building after finding out where Aqualad went. She'll try to follow Aqualad, basically going after him first and trying to figure out what the real scientist was. Basically, after we do this, we get switched back to Robin and Connor, but their situation doesn't really change much at all. So basically, we get switched back to Artemis, tracking down the assassin after she leaves. We see that Mark would have followed Artemis, but would have been detained because when a Black Spider would have jumped in, trying to stop Wally and Invincible from getting away. Pretty much Invincible would have just dealt with this pretty quickly, him just kicking Black Spider into the ground, knocking him cold out. They would have gone at the assassin, and in this case, the assassin would have had to fight all of them instead of just Artemis. They would have been fighting the assassin, and the assassin would have thrown a shuriken towards Wally, hitting Wally in the foot, stabbing him. Wally would yell in pain, and Mark would have came to his side to try to help him out. Basically, that giving enough time for the pretty much chase and capture type of fight scene that happened between the assassin and Artemis. They would have been fighting building to building. It just happened a lot more faster in this canon. They eventually having that little moment of pretty much, dialogue. And as the assassin would try to leave, Mark would have stepped in, grabbing the assassin by the throat and throwing him down to the ground. Mark would have tried to handcuff the assassin, but the assassin would have took out some sort of glowing blade and would have cut Mark. Mark being confused on how he was, cut by some sort of blade. He fell onto the ground, and the blade would be irradiating some sort of energy that can basically, one of the only, in this universe, some sort of energy that could be able to, penetrate Viltrumite's skin. So basically, pretty much what would happen is Mark would have crawled away, and his chest would have started to bleed out because he would have been stabbed in the chest with the blade. Basically, we see that Mark's regeneration on his Viltrumite pretty much DNA would have been working overdrive to keep him alive. Basically, as we get switched to Megan trying to fight the crawl dude, basically we see that she would have, easily taken him out after figuring out his weaknesses and his drawbacks with his ability and his power, pretty much knocking him out pretty quickly. We see after that, Black Spider would have been taken care of, or he would have been, webbed up because pretty much Wally would have taken off one of the webbing off of Black Spider and would have just webbed him up. We would see that pretty much Wally would have walked off pretty much his superhuman or his pretty much speedster healing working overdrive to pretty much heal his feet or pretty much his toe because he was stabbed in the right, right where your foot pretty much makes her toes right there, like almost cutting off his toes. After that, we see that pretty much the assassin would elect the scientist and was about to kill her. But what would happen is the assassin would have been. Oh, sorry guys, I'm rereading my script. Basically, we see that pretty much. Well, as we get switch back to Robin and Connor, Robin basically uses the scientist, well, the virus she did, and she pretty much inputs it into the nanotech, killing all the nanotech, and pretty much destroying them. Now, basically after that, we see that Connor would have stepped in, taking down the other guy that was behind the nanotech and was controlling them. And pretty much what would happen is Mark would have been crawling away after he was bleeding out. Mark would have been, very quickly rushed to the hospital room or rushed to the med kit at Mount Justice as fast as possible. Him being treated, but pretty much most of the heroes wouldn't be able to cut through Mark's skin. Mark's skin would have started to slowly try to heal itself. Pretty much them taking him to a more secure area in the medical bay in Mount Justice. What would happen is he would have been treated, and we get switched to the end of the episode. Basically, the light talking about the data from Star Labs they required and everything. Now, basically, after that, we see the episode ends with pretty much the head right hand of pretty much the right hand of, well, what was it? The right hand of the light or Ra's al Ghul would have been talking to the light. After that, we would get switched to episode 7, where we would see the Dr. Fate episode. Basically, we start our story off in New Orleans, where we see the original or the current, pretty much guardian of the helmet. Basically, him going into New Orleans, basically having some time to pretty much go into the psychic shop. Basically, him trying to figure out how to, well, pretty much connect with his dead wife. After he does this, he pretty much exposes the psychic reader as a fake, but basically as it happens, we get switched to pretty much Connor and pretty much Aqualad sparring. They would have been sparring back in Mount Justice, and as it was happening, we see that they would have been fighting. Now guys, if you've seen episode 7, you've seen what episode 7, and you notice what I skipped over. So basically, pretty much what happened is Megan would have been talking to that Silver Boy, and basically would have been talking about couples. Her saying that maybe you and Wally can be one. Her pretty much just scoffing off this idea a little bit. But basically, she also brings up Mark, and she does think about this, but pretty much we see that Mark watches the fight happen, and pretty much he steps in trying to fight. And they would have had a little bit more time to actually spar. So basically what happened is before Red Tornado could show up, pretty much Connor and Mark would have tried to get into a fighting stance. They were about to go at it, them charging each other at full speed, but would have been stopped when Red Tornado ran against the fight or right between them, saying that they had a mission. Now basically what happened is, after this, we see that Mark would have been looking around. Basically, him just noticing about the mission, about magic and stuff like that. Basically, pretty much, well, him changing his ideas because Wally would have still been, kind of a, well, simp for Megan still. Him just, pretty much, well, abandoning his ideas about magic and pretty much sticking with the idea that he thinks magic is real. Yeah, whatever. Basically, right after telling Artemis that he thinks is all bull. So basically, it's just, just weird. Now, basically, after that, we see that Red Tornado hands him a key for the pretty much castle or pretty much the secret house of pretty much Dr. Fate and tells him to go and check out on Dr. Fate or see if he's okay. That's their mission. They go on their mission, then they're taking their hero costume, but Mark taking his. Pretty much Wally tells Mark, why did you bring your hero costume? And Mark says, it's just a really good fit, and also it's really comfy. It's really comfy. Basically, he would have been pretty much wearing a blue hoodie with pretty much black jeans and yellow shoes. Something put together pretty quickly. And pretty much would be was it black sweatpants, pretty much a very baggy hoodie. So pretty much his suit was just underneath his citizen clothes. After this, we see that pretty much well, pretty much the Chaos God and also the Musician was pretty much torturing Dr. Fate or the current user of Dr. Fate, basically trying to, well, pretty much torture him and get the information they need. And basically, as we see, the cat would have been talking to the god of chaos. It would have told him that visitors are here, or pretty much the heroes are here. You see that Wally and Connor, and also Mark would have been searched out the area, mainly Mark because he could fly. Basically, him pretty much just bringing up the fact that it's nothing here. And basically, we'll see that pretty much, well, Aqualad would have been searching around something, and he eventually would have came across the pretty much, well, castle, him opening the door with a key. And like a stupid idiot, he would have left the key just in the door after it's shut. Like, come on, dude, come on. Just leave the door wide open. No one closed the door. But basically, we see that pretty much after everybody walks in, we see a hologram or a magic hologram of pretty much the original or the already present user of the Dr. Fate helmet. Basically, him saying, "Why are you here? State your purpose." Basically, Wally stepping in and saying, "We are true believers here to find Dr. Fate." Pretty much his hologram, sensing that Wally is, lying, it would have instantly dropped them into a lava pit. Basically, them falling down. As they're falling down, we see how Mark would have flown up, grabbing Wally, grabbing Aqualad, and pretty much him flying up. We see that Artemis would have saved herself, pretty much Connor using his super strength to pretty much pill himself down to pretty much the side of the concrete or the wall before pretty much, he hit the ground. But he did fall into the lava, only his feet though. As this happens, we see pretty much after that, we see pretty much, well, the Dr. Fate door would have opened up, immediately showing stairs so he wouldn't have to go through the hologram because, well, it's Dr. Fate. After that, we would see that pretty much Dr. Fate would have been, well, pretty much forced to lead them to the helmet. As they were doing this, we would get switched to pretty much the rest of the team, pretty much Mark flying upwards, and pretty much a scene that Artemis would have seen that Aqualad is kind of, fading out because, it's really hot, and his pretty much, well, Atlantean skin or his Atlantean anatomy isn't taking his heat very well. Pretty much, Mark would have known this, and Mark would have tried to fly back up. But for some reason, the magic would have pulled the gravitational pull onto Mark for plot reasons, basically pushing Mark down more into the lava. As he was being pushed down to the lava, not pushed, but like actually pulled down past Megan as she was levitating down to the ground. As he was hitting the ground, he would have fell right into the lava, him throwing pretty much Wally and Aqualad upwards before he hit the lava. Pretty much Artemis grabbing Aqualad and pretty much Megan grabbing Wally. Pretty much we would see that Mark would have hit the ground into the lava, and they would have assumed that Mark was dead. It would be dead silent, and pretty much Mark would have flew out and pretty much would have tried to swim into the lava. Him feeling the pain, but pretty much his normal clothes being peeled away or burnt away, and his suit being pretty much just unfazed because the suit would be pretty much lava proof because it would be able to go up against a lot of durability, basically going up against bullet blast, and pretty much his suit being bulletproof even though he doesn't even need to be bulletproof since he is a Ultramite. But basically we see that pretty much Artemis would have noticed about no, Megan would have noticed about, how, of course, it's like, it's a truth teller thing. And basically, she tells the truth about, well, everything. She tells the truth about pretty much what was it? She tells the truth about why they're there. Basically, pretty much about Red Tornado sending us here to figure out or try to, find out if, if Dr. Fate's okay, and blah blah. Basically, as they land after they're saved because, Megan told the truth, we see that pretty much after that, we see that pretty much Wally would have been, scolded by Mark and Artemis. Basically, Artemis saying, "Why would you lie? You almost got us all killed." Basically, Wally would have said pretty much, I don't believe in magic. Everything can be, well, everything can be explained by science, even magic, or what you people call magic. Him saying that science is everything. science is everything, how I get my powers. Basically, how the Flash can run so fast. Science is key. It's key to everything. And basically, what happened is pretty much what was it? Uncle Lad would have opened up the hatch that they were on after they were saved by the lava, and pretty much would have noticed that it was a snow area that would lead him to another area like in the Arctic or something. Pretty much him seeing that something was just weird. It was magic. But basically, well, Wally would have still been hesitant and pretty much would have just, scrubbed it off. Him saying, that's not magic, it's just a theory. Basically, pretty much Deku. I mean, sorry. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. I don't know why these last few months I can't really say much of anything. But basically, guys, we see that Deku. We see that Mark. Sorry, guys. Invincible basically would have grabbed onto the pretty much was it spear or pretty much on the cane instead of Wally. But before he can fly off, Wally would have grabbed on basically Kane doing some weird stuff like teleporting the spots of Mark and Wally left and right. Eventually, Mark being behind or grabbing on Wally's foot and Wally grabbing on the cane. Mark would have lost his grip and would have fallen onto the ground, basically us seeing that they would have been teleported away. Mark would have gone back up, or he would have swooped back up using his flight to levitate back on the ground onto his feet, him noticing that they were gone. As we switch to the rest of the episode, since most of the episode is just the team trying to figure out where to go. As the team would figure out where to go, going through the door, pretty much we see that Artemis and Wally would have showed up right pretty much next to the Dr. Fate. As Dr. Fate would be levitated towards them, he would have made his great pretty much escape, basically them getting away from the pretty much bad guys. As they were going to the top of the castle, they would see the Dr. Fate helmet, and as they were being attacked by the villains, pretty much the Dr. Fate would have died because of old age and also being wounded, basically Wally being left behind to put on the helmet. As Wally was left behind to pin on the helmet, we see the rest of the team as they were being captured or electrocuted. Pretty much we see that Wally had a choice to put on the helmet and become the new, pretty much avatar for Dr. Fate. As he was thinking about this, he knew that the cane's magic was dissipating because the cane was burning up and the shield was dissipating. Pretty much he knew that what he had to do was a test of fate, and he had to put the helmet on, knowing that it could be a good chance that he would never come back, but he needed to do it. He put the helmet on before the God of Chaos could stop him, and the helmet used his power, basically saving him at the last second, and pretty much Dr. Fate talking to him. As this happened, we see that pretty much the original user, Dr. Fate, the first one, or the one that just died in Wally's arms, basically is there as well. Pretty much he says that this is the real Dr. Fate. The real one behind the helmet. Basically him introducing him to the god. Now basically we can see in real life, sorry guys, in real life we would see that Wally would have been using his Dr. Fate helmet or would have used the power to pretty much just take down the God of Chaos pretty quickly. A little bit of fighting, but yet again he would have won nonetheless. He would have won, and pretty much the god of pretty much chaos would have been forced to retreat. After this, he would have left, and pretty much he would have just disappeared. After this, we see that Dr. Fate would use magic to take down the magician, and as this happens, instead of Connor getting up and fighting the magician, Mark would have been really filled with anger and just straight up murked the guy right there with one punch. Not murk him, not kill him, but almost dislocate his whole jaw and rip it off of his, skull. But just knocked him out, pretty much oh my gosh, bro. Fracturing pretty much the guy's jaw, knocking him out cold and almost killing him. As Connor would say, you went too far. Mark would have said, from you? That's a big change of words from a little man. They would have been looking at each other, At this point, the fight would have broken out. They would have started to fight against each other, but they would have been stuck because Aqualad would have told them to stop and leave it for another day. Pretty much saying that we're a team and we can't be doing this. Mark would have looked at them saying whatever, him flying up, and pretty much us seeing that Dr. Fate would have been, discretion to pretty much let the boy go, but he would have eventually been convinced, and pretty much he would have let the boy go, having faith in the boy having faith in Wally, that Wally would give it to the right person, or Wally would use it at the right time, knowing when to use it and how to use it. That's what's happening. We see that pretty much Wally would have taken the helmet. Originally, guys, for the script, I was going to give the helmet to Mark, but I feel like Mark kind of believes in magic or anything superhero-wise because, well, he is kind of a big superhero type of person. Like, he's really into magic and stuff like that, so he's kind of a superhero nerd. Basically, we see after that, we see pretty much Wally would have put the Dr. Fate helmet up on the from a shelf alongside his other pretty much souvenirs like the Cobra hood, pretty much Artemis's arrow, Amazo's eyeball, not Amazo's eyeball, but pretty much Spinner's eyeball, and a bunch of other stuff. As was happening, we see that pretty much Mark would have just gone to sleep that night, him not really doing much of anything. As that would happen, this episode kind of uneventful. Mark didn't really do much of anything in this episode other than change the event and how, Aqualad and Wally were saved, but still like that. Now, Mark did heal from the whole time him getting stabbed in the chest pretty quickly because he is a Vulturemite. And he did heal from straight up, being completely brutally destroyed by his father and getting back up like nothing happened a couple months or a couple years later. Or a couple months later. He just got completely brutalized by his father and just got back up. Like, yeah. But guys, in episode, just a disclaimer, guys. In episode 18, 19, or maybe episode 23 to 22, pretty much, pretty much the last episode is when we will see Omni-Man really go all out and try to kill the Justice League. Basically doing episode 26, that's when Omni-Man will really truly have the right time and the right, motivation into killing all of the Justice League. Now, he will kill some of the members, but they'll just come back because, it's Young Justice, and also, it's freaking DC Comics. No one really stays dead in DC Comics. No one really stays dead. Unless they're a superhero's parents, then they're gonna die. But basically, we see that pretty much in the episode wouldn't leave off there, though. And the episode would have left off on the Justice League trying to investigate another death of one of the past or one of a pretty much former member of the Justice League. Basically, Invincible going after weaker opponents of the Justice League. As we would see pretty much pictures and photographs of pretty much, a completely shattered, boned up, killed, like mangled Black Lightning. In this canon, Black Lightning would have been the next one to be a victim to Omni-Man. Now, he won't be dead because, Black Lightning has I guess some sort of type of healing factor because he can heal from bruises and cuts and sometimes big if bullets. But basically, his body would have absorbed a lot of electricity to go up against Omni-Man because he would have been pretty much crossed the path of Omni-Man killing him or trying to kill him. Basically just grabbing him and throwing him through a whole mountain. Omni-Man just assuming that he was dead because he flew towards his body and saw that it was all mangled and kind of all beaten up and bruised. Basically, him just assuming that Black Lightning was dead because he didn't have a pulse. He would fly off, but Black Lightning's electric ability would have shocked him back to life. His body, or him being in type of a coma, you can guess. The Justice League would have been investigated into this, and pretty much they would have called in Omni-Man. Omni-Man would have asked where was Black Lightning, them saying that we can't give out that information. Because one of us is the one that did this to Black Lightning. One of us is the imposter. Pretty much the episode ended off there with a big cliffhanger. That pretty much they wouldn't figure out Omni-Man was the killer until episode 25 or episode 26. So pretty much was the assaulter. And basically, Black Lightning would be in a coma for the rest of this episode or the rest of the season because he would have been Black Lightning isn't invincible. He can't survive being thrown against a whole freaking mountain, or if he survives, he at least has to be in a coma or at least be like critically damaged, and he was critically damaged. But his enhanced metahuman regeneration would have been supercharged because they would have charged up some or would have hooked his body up with a constant amount of energy source, so his power would have been working, his body would have been working, his metagene would have been working overdrive to absorb enough energy to pretty much just keep his body from dying, and him using most of the energy to try to reconstruct his bones and fuse them back together. Basically, him being in a coma and healing his body for the next, for the next season. Now, basically, I'm gonna leave it up here, guys, and I'm gonna leave it up here, guys. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day. See you guys later. Deuces.